Hari Om. In chapter 11, it seems as if Bhagwan is in the mood to shower us with the Amrit of Advaita, Amritam Varshanim, which means Advaitam Rita Varshinim, which means that this is the philosophy that gives us a glimpse into totality. Now, our minds, which are limited, of course, because of its conditioning, and our bodies and senses are definitely conditioned by the space we live in. We are not capable actually, because the instrument is wrong. This mind, this body, this limited instrument is the wrong one to perceive that God, that Almighty, that totality with. So we may not complain that, oh God, I cannot see, you have made this a great mystery. The great mystery of knowing totality is not that it is hidden from us, but we are searching with the wrong instruments, our limited mind and our limited senses. It is not an object of sensory perception that we have seen several times before. Now, the totality of existence is so vast that it encompasses actually everything. And yet, a little creature like us, we are not able to even to conceive it with the mind, leave alone see it, perceive it or realize it. That's a far cry. Even to conceive it with our little minds, कि हाँ ये हो सकता है. एक intuition की तरफ जाना होता है हमको, so that we can grasp it with an intuition, if not with our actual mind. Now, if this totality, this Brahma, this Satya, this entire reality of Allah or Brahma is so vast, then only a few can have this Divya Chakshu by grace. When we say that I have Charma Chakshu, which means I have physical eyes, I can see the world with it. Okay? Now I need to understand very subtle concepts like what is Sat? What is the Vivek between permanent, impermanent, Sat? What is Chit, Chetana, consciousness? What is Sat Chit? To understand this, we need a teacher or a guru or a scripture. But what about Divya Chakshu? To see that entire vision, to see the world in one glimpse. Not like you have to go in an aeroplane and go around it. Even then you can see only one fraction of this earth, which is like a speck in this entire Brahmand. No, not that way. For that we need the grace of God to have a Divya Chakshu. And who got the Divya Chakshu? Well, in the first place it is of course Sanjay, because if he didn't have Divya Chakshu, he wouldn't be able to sit in the battlefield, sit in Hastinapur and relate what is happening in the battlefield. Arjun is the other one to get Divya Chakshu. The vastness and completeness of this universe is to be able to grasp it in one glance is not possible with the eyes, but it's like a vision. It's like an intuitive vision. And when we get it, what happens? This is what we are going to see right up ahead when Arjun actually is going to have a glimpse of the Virat Roop, the Vishwa Roop of Krishna. Has Krishna shown this Virat Roop and Vishwa Roop to anyone else? Yes, of course. Right through the course of his life, he had exhibited his Rupa, his real Rupa, partially or wholly, in about 4 times. This is the 4th time. This is the 3rd time actually. The first time when he was a little baby and Balramji complained to Yashoda saying that, look, Krishna has swallowed a dollop of mud. And there's mud in his mouth, and Yashoda said, open your mouth, I want to see it. And when Krishna opened his mouth, what did she see? She saw the enormity of the entire universe, stretching far into the distance, right through the galaxies rushing past. It's as if like she was amazed at the vision. That was the first time we know about the entire universe being encapsulated in one little Krishna. The second time was when, just before the battle of Kurukshetra actually, Krishna had tried to put a stop to this war, and he wanted to persuade Dhritarashtra. So So he went as an ambassador of the Kauravas to the palace of Dhritarashtra and requested him. At that point in time, he actually showed him his Vishwaroop, which means what? That when you see, when you understand the enormity of the universe and you understand everything is one, everything else should fall into place for you to know that all your little vanities and your vainglorious pursuits and all your little identities with your ambitions, all those should fall into insignificance. That was the whole idea. But no, Dhritarashtra, blind as he was, even the vision, and please remember he was blind, so naturally Krishna couldn't have shown him a physical vision. So the Virat Roop or the Vishwaroop that we are going to see the description of in this chapter 11 is not actually a physical vision. Otherwise, how would Dhritarashtra have seen it? He was blind, right? Now, it simply means that it is a vision in the inner self, in the inner mind, which sometimes you can get when you are in a deep meditation. So this is a vision, okay? This is not and Dhritarashtra saw it, and yet he was so blinded, not physically blinded only, but also delusional about his attachment and his moha for the Kauravas, that he, in spite of seeing the Virat Roop of Krishna, he did not detract from the war. Can you imagine the extent of his delusion? It happens to us too. Even if someone told us, and the scriptures keep telling us, and some gurus tell us that, look, there is a higher reality, and that reality encompasses everything as one reality. That means we are just a small part of that one. That means that we look fragmented, we feel different, we behave differently, but we are made of that one tattva. Everything, every creature moving, sacharacharam, moving or unmoving, everything is the same. When we view the vastness of reality, or even begin to conceive of or comprehend it, we still do not detract ourselves from our little attachments and ambitions and our rajasic pursuits. Why? It is the same delusion as Dhritarashtra, that no, I am so attached to it that I, me, myself, my ambition, my religion, my language, my culture and my progress, my achievements are unique, are different, and I am different. That is something we cannot lose our hold on. And that detachment, that tyag of this I identity is all that all the scriptures are asking us to do. It's easy to say yes, it's all that they are asking, but it is the biggest block to our living a spiritual life, to leading a life of dharma. The aham, the I identity, and that I identity identifies with everything. So it is Kauravas and my sons and my kingdom for Dhritarashtra, and for me it is my car, my bungalow, my bank balance, my family, mera naam or shohrat, and my talents, whatever. It's the same thing. It's the same delusion. So Bhagwan actually failed in his attempt to turn Dhritarashtra around. But this chapter 11 is an important one for Arjun and for us, because this seems to be a turning point in the thinking of Arjun. We must remember that he began his journey in chapter 1 and 2, Arjun, with a lot of lamentation and a lot of grief. So the more grief we have, we must understand the less spiritual we are. How is that? I mean, you can't say that, no, the tragedy should not affect me. No, we are not saying that tragedies don't affect or impact people. It is that when you sustain a sense of suffering in your mind, it means that you are not holding the totality of existence in your mind, which means the law of nature will be as it is. People will behave as they do. Kauravas will behave as they do, and there's nothing that can change it. So if you have to kill Arjun, if you have to even fight this battle out with your own cousins and teachers and your grandsires, so be it. It's a law of nature. The moment we resist the law of nature, there is suffering in our minds. So the moment we say there is suffering, it means we have not understood this grand law of nature. And what is it? So that is what is being revealed to Arjun in chapter 11 as Virat Roop, Vishwaroop, to say, look, you are beyond all this, Arjun. And so take a look at the bigger picture. Take a bird's eye view. No, not even bird's eye view. Take a God's eye view about this sansar, about this entire Brahman. And that's how Arjun finally, when he heard the description from Sanjaya, in the beginning he was not even able to describe. And Sanjaya, of course, described it in the famous words, Divi Surya Sahasrasya, in verse number 12. That means like 1,000 suns rising up all at once. Bhavedyuga paduthita, all at once, like an atomic explosion of great magnitude. Arjun was silent even in that. And now in the 15th verse, Arjun speaks. Finally he has found his tongue. Arjuna uvacha, verse number 15, chapter 11. Pashyami devastava devadehe sarvastatha bhuta vishesha sanghan. He says, I can see gods, I can see a host of other beings, a whole multitude of beings and creatures. How is that? Brahmanamisham kamalasanastham rishishcha sarvanurangascha divyan. I can see Brahma, the Lord who is seated on lotus, and I can see sages, I can see their serpents in great multitudes, and they are all divine. Now all this may seem a little like science fiction, and of course it is a description which Vedavyas has very courageously tried to put into words, and words, I have already said, they are dwarfed in the presence of the total existence, the totality, the ultimate reality. Words become like little dwarfs. And yet Vedavyasji has been courageous enough to say, okay, I will paint a picture of this Virat Roop. No, it may look like science fiction, but there is significance to all this. It simply means that yes, there was a burst of beings and creatures all over. That means that what we see with our limited minds and bodies and senses is actually one fraction of existence. But if you take God's eye view, the eye view of the entire macrocosm, then you see a burst of everything that can exist in this Brahmand, not just this earth. So this is a macrocosm, and the view of the macrocosm is just described as a multitude of all creatures. So you see everything together, and the technical Vedantic word for it is samashti. Samashti means the macrocosm, where everything exists, and it exists all together. And what we are existing or experiencing, let's say, we exist in the whole macrocosm, but we experience the microcosm, because our bodies are microscopic in comparison to the great Brahmand. So we see the microcosm. That whole jagat that we call our jagat, mera sansar, meri family, ye mera sansar, that is a microcosm, and that is called vyashti, the technical word, vyashti and samashti. So now Arjun, who was dumbfounded so far, and suddenly he can see the entire cosmos. And this is the kind of expansion of the mind that is felt even by people who go deep into samadhi. I'm not saying that we have experienced samadhi. We are only going by the description of people who have been kind enough to come out of samadhi and actually describe it. Although it's not fully describable, but only the kind people come and describe, hey, look, this is what is there on the other side. Otherwise, they all fall silent. They just fall silent. They are so much in awe of this, the experience of an entirety, of totality, of the satya, of truth, that they just go silent. There are many rishis like that. They just won't speak after that. But some kind ones like Chinmayaji and Vivekanandji and Adi Shankaracharya, for example, they are kind enough to say, okay, you are little mortals who deal in little words, but I'm still going to describe it for you. So we are lucky. We are getting to know this in little pieces, bits and pieces. Okay, let's see how vast we can expand our minds. How much we can expand it like a balloon that expands to eternity and then bursts forth. It's just like the bursting of that balloon in which we are confined right now, actually. All our senses and whatever we attach ourselves to is a kind of confinement. I'm confined only to that. It's a very limited space to be in. And then we are happy in that space, feeling our little sukhas and our little dukkhas. And then we pass on life, life passes on, and that's the end of it. So this vast expansion of the mind is what is being attempted through the description of the Virat Roop. And therefore, as we see the description, we move to verse number 16 with some more gripping details. And the details are such that they can unnerve even the most courageous, including Arjun. Aneka bahudara vaktra netram pashyami tvam sarvato nantarupam. I can see boundless mouths, so many eyes on all sides. So painters have actually taken this as a literal description, and they have actually painted figures like this with multiple heads and multiple mouths on all sides. Pashyami tvam sarvato nantarupam. And there are many forms on all sides. Okay. Nantana madhyam na punastavadim. Where I cannot see the middle and I cannot see the beginning, I cannot see the end. Pashyami Vishveshvara Vishwarupa. I see the Lord of the universe, the cosmic form. Aneka bahudara vaktra netram. This also sounds like science fiction, yes, with some special effects and VFX effects, special effects and science. Yes, it sounds like that. But there is this, an artist can only depict through his artistic medium. So today we have VFX, and we see the most fantastic effects being used in movies like, I haven't seen many science fiction, but even when there are movies like the Superman, some fantastic effects are used. That is the medium, that is the craft which is used by the artist, because he has VFX as his craft. Ved Vyasji had his craft as literature. So he is using his words. Whatever be the craft, what is being described is beyond normal comprehension. So it sounds like science fiction, no doubt. But what we need to see is, what does it actually imply? It says, Pashyami tvam sarvato nantarupam. I cannot see the middle, and I cannot see the beginning, and I cannot see the end. How can we? How is it possible? Because this existence is purna. It's complete. So anything that is complete and purna, like a circle, for example, can you say this is the beginning of the circle, that's the end of the circle, and that's the middle of the circle? I don't mean center, I mean, middle of the circular line. No, you cannot point at it, because it is purna. It is complete. And therefore, it is also said that sometimes when you want to think about it in your meditation, you can think that you are in space. You don't even need a spaceship. You're just flying through it, and you want to see the end of space. Okay, so you make that your mission. That आज के meditation में हम इतने दूर जाएंगे कि end of space तक पहुंच जाएंगे. Is it possible? Because there is no such thing. There is no such thing as end of space, because it is unlimited. It is infinite. Now the little finite mind that we have, through that, to view this infinite becomes a little tough, and therefore we have to use intuition, and we have to use shraddha, belief that हाँ ऐसा होगा. So we have to use them as crutches, shraddha and intuition. Actually space, we are used to moving in a linear direction, कि हम सीधे यहाँ जाएंगे तो कहीं अंत आ जाएगा. But if your spaceship, scientists have found that if your spaceship actually moves in one direction, any one direction, up or down. By the way, when you are hanging in space, you cannot tell your north, south, east, west, or up, or you cannot even say what is up and what is down. It will only be in relation to your head. कि मेरा head यहाँ है तो इसके ऊपर north होगा. It is only in relation to that. Otherwise, there is no up or down. Can you believe it? But if you move in any direction, we can't even call it right or left now in space. Do you know that after millions and millions of years, if it's possible, you will come right around to where you are? How is that? Because scientists are now beginning to discover that space is also not linear. It is curved. And therefore you will come right round. It is anant, infinite, and yet it is curved. So the only little example that we can think of is the circle. Circle has no beginning, no end. So that's why he's saying, Pashyami tvam sarvato nanta rupam. Many forms I see. Nanta na madhyam na punasta vadim. I don't see the middle or the beginning or the end. How can you? Anyway, it's like an ant which is crawling over your arm, and then the ant really thinks, oh, this creature or whatever, this, maybe she thinks we are Brahma. So the ant thinks we are Brahma and she says, this Brahma is Ananta. I don't see the end of it or the middle of it or the beginning of it. How can she? Because she is traveling on this small little square, 1 little millimeter space. So for the ant, we are the Ananta Brahma, that kind of space. So in comparison, we are like that creature who cannot experience the vastness of space. But scientists will corroborate the fact that infinity, that space curves around and it has no beginning, no middle, no end. And in fact, as I said, no directions either. Up, down, north, south, we are calculating only in relation to something. So हम कहेंगे, अच्छा, Earth is here. So now in relation to Earth, I may calculate some distances, whatever. But if there's no Earth, if there's just space there, like some black hole, no Earth, no planet, how do I calculate? In relation to what? So in relation to means relative to. So everything for us is relative to something. But in space, there is only one and one reality, Satya, cosmos. In that cosmos, there is one consciousness, and that is not relative to anything. Relative to means you cannot compare it to something or use your direction, sense of direction, using that as a pointer. It just is. Because it is avyaya. We must remember it exists everywhere and at every point in time. So the vastness of space and the vastness of time is what this mind is trying to grapple with in this chapter. And then we try to say, I want to see that consciousness which is there in space. Again, it's a wrong approach and the wrong question, for the simple reason that there is no distance between Paramatma and Atma. They are of the same Tattva. So if we are looking into the mirror, for example, and we see our own reflection. Now the reflection is on the mirror. Now tell me, what is the exact distance between that reflected image and the mirror for that moment of time? Doesn't the mind boggle? It's because there is no distance. That image is on the mirror and it appears as if the mirror is, that image is me. But we are actually looking at the mirror and we are saying that image is me. So we cannot tell the difference between Paramatma and Atma because we are looking for a difference. There is no difference. There is only one, which means that the person who is projecting the image on the mirror is the only one. और वो जो इमेज दिखाई दे रही है वो तो रिफ्लेक्शन है. तो हम लोग जो आत्मा कहा जाता है, हम लोगों की आत्मा, which is not in but which is powering our small little bodies, that is a reflection. It's a reflected atma. And therefore we grapple with this whole thing. नहीं मुझे शीशे में दिख रहा है, that is me. No, the one that is projecting the mirror, there is only one. दो नहीं हो सकते. अगर हम 4-5 मिरर्स लगा दें और सामने खड़े हो जाएं तो क्या we are so many? That's why it has been described in chapter 11 that I can see aneka bahudara vaktra netram. I can see n number of mouths and hands and eyes. That's because they are all reflected images, means all of us creatures, of that same one Paramatma standing in front of the mirror. Because reality is only one. हम तो एक ही है कमरे में, mirrors इतने सारे हैं. Reality can't be so many, चाहे जितने mirrors लगा लें. Therefore this description, which sounds outlandish, but this is the significance. Moving to chapter 17 to verse 17 with some more descriptions. Kiritinam gadinam chakrinam cha tejo rashim sarvato deeptimantam. I can see the crown, club and discus, yeah. Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, these are the things that Bhagwan Vishnu holds in his hand, right? That is also significance to all of these. Tejo Rashim it's a mass of light. Tej is light and Rashi is like a whole collection. So this is a mass of light. Tejo Rashim Sarvato Deeptimantam, which is shining and blinding me. Actually, Arjun, we would all be blinded. And it happens to us sometimes when we are in meditation. You will notice that sometimes there is this blinding whitish bluish light that seems to, and your eyes are closed, remember, and still your eyes, you seem to flinch for a moment because it is so bright and it is so sharp. You just get a glimpse of it. Of course, people in Samadhi may be able to hold it. It is that Tejo Rashim which is actually blinding even with your eyes closed. And Arjun actually is not looking with physical eyes, he is looking with Divya Chakshu. And even in that vision, you can flinch for a moment, it is so blinding. What is this Kiritanam, the crown? Well, Kiritanam is a crown, but it simply is a symbol to say that the one who wears the crown, let's put it as a very worldly symbol, the one who wears the crown is the one who is the Lord, right? If we are the Lord of our senses, having control over our mind and our senses, Shama and Dama, then we can say that we deserve to be wearing the crown, the conqueror of our passions. Now, the symbols that are held by Lord Vishnu, Shankha, Chakra, Gada and Padma, are also symbolic naturally. Everything in the Bhagavad is symbolic. They are not to be taken literally, unless the minds are very literal and tribal and childish. And I'm sure we are none of those. So we have to take the symbols for their significance. Now Shankh, actually the conch shell, stands for a clarion call towards the higher life, towards the higher knowledge. That means the Shankha is calling us each time to lift ourselves from the material pursuits and seek the higher knowledge. And Chakra, of course, is a symbol of Kal. Kal Chakra kehte hain na, which means that it is relentless and it is going to decimate everyone, annihilate everyone, irrespective of is that person good or bad or holy or unholy or king or pauper. It doesn't matter. Kal Chakra is something that decimates, annihilates without distinction. And so that chakra has to be remembered by us. Because if we don't remember that we are all part of that chakra, we are all slowly passing on into that, towards that annihilation, we will live like fools with our little pride and our little hurts and anger and destruction and selfishness. But to remember the Kal Chakra is another symbol that Vishnu holds. So whenever we see Vishnu, he is holding the conch, Shankha, Chakra, and Gada, of course, Gada, that is the mace or the club that he holds, is a symbol of discipline. Unless we have discipline, we cannot rise above a life of materialistic or animalistic existence. And Padma, the lotus, Padma is a lotus, which is the sign of auspiciousness or peace or joy, which of course is the pursuit of everyone. All of us are seeking peace and joy and Anand, but in the wrong places. We won't go into that. Suffice it to say that this grand picture, this grand vision of the crown and the Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma is what Arjun is hit by. And these are actually, this is a representation which is deified, which is made into a godlike symbol. Tejo Rashim, mass of radiance. That radiance is actually not a physical light, as I said. If it was a physical light, then in my meditation with my eyes closed, how is it that I could see it? For example, forget meditation. If I ask you to shut your eyes right now and think of your car. Okay, so if you think of your car and your eyes are closed and the car is nowhere around you in any case, did you see the car? Yes, I did. Even I did actually. How did we see that car? In what light? So there was no physical light. So light is just a way, it's just a human word, word used by humans to denote that awareness. That it is in that awareness that I could actually recollect and reconstruct the image of my car, or my God, or my Krishna's image, or my holy Gita, or my parent who is dead and gone. I can conjure up any number of images in my mind, and I can see them how? In what light? That light is the light of awareness. Where does it come from? It is part of us. It's inbuilt. So it's like a LED. It is inbuilt. It's not like a bulb you have to attach and say, okay, now I can see this. That awareness is part of us, consciousness. Otherwise, if that awareness was not part of us, how would we be conscious at all? So Krishna is trying to say, I am that universal consciousness which touches everyone, everything. And that is actually the ultimate reality, because when we are dead and gone, that is the only thing that remains. And so now Arjun says, oh, I can see the power of your yoga. And from this now I understand. So now he goes on to explain what he has understood about Bhagwan. What has he understood? He says in number 18, Tvamaksharam paramam veditavyam Tvamastya vishvasya param nidhanam. Okay, first of all I understand that you are Tvam, you are Aksharam. Naturally, you are imperishable. Consciousness cannot be decimated or killed or annihilated or burnt So that is quite obvious now, because the moment I don't know where consciousness is, I can't touch it, I can't feel it, experience it, but in my mind's eye, I am conscious of so many things in my past, and I can conjure up so many images about what I want to do or be in future. So my consciousness doesn't even know time. It's past, present, future. In every space it is there. Aksharam, Tvam Aksharam. Oh, Arjun says, I understand now you, Krishna, Tvam are Aksharam. Oh, very good. He's making some progress now. Paramam, that means you are, of course, the Supreme. And Veditavyam, you are worthy of knowing. This is something I want to know. He started by saying, I want to know how this war is going to end. Is it going to end with me shedding the blood of my own family? That's all he wanted to know in his life. Now he wants to know higher things. And he says, you are worthy of knowing. Veditavyam. So, Tvamaksharam, of course, is a homogeneous, absolute state. So we can't say it is a thing, it's a state. Oh, it's not even a state. It is a being. By being, I don't mean creature. It's a state of being. Let's call it that way. The struggle of words happens only when we struggle with words. The moment you slip into meditation, the struggle with words ends. And then you don't need it anymore. And now, how do you know about these states? How do you know that this is the ultimate state? Because I know so many states of my being. For example, in my waking state, there is no dreamer. I, the dreamer, is not there when I'm waking. For example, now, I'm completely woken up and hopefully I'm not daydreaming. I'm not dreaming either. Dreamer is absent. In my dream state, remember these are states of being. In my dream state, the waker is absent. Ah, okay. And in my deep sleep, both are absent, the waker and the dreamer. And yet, I arise, I awake, I say I exist. So what is that state? Exactly. Now that question, people have to hold in their mind. That is the state, because I experience so many different states of waking and dreaming and deep sleep, and also various emotions of desires and upsets and noble desires, petty desires of hatred, and all these are arising and dissolving. For example, there are things that are arising in my thought, in my thought state, and after some time that thought is gone. Gone where? Dissolved where? Came from where? And in my mind, suddenly I had this feeling of fear. Oh, there's someone at the door. That fear It could be any emotion actually. It could be affection or attachment or fear, whatever. It arose in my heart, in my mind, and then it dissolved. I say, oh, it is just a neighbor. That fear dissolved. Arose where? Dissolved where? There has to be a substratum, otherwise these things cannot rise. So there is this vast ocean of consciousness, which is the substratum on which all these states are arising and dissolving, rising and falling. And without a substratum, it wouldn't be possible for any of these states to rise and fall. That's why they are like waves on the ocean of consciousness. Because all the states that I have just described are changing, constantly changing. Fear now, not fear anymore. When I see, oh, it was just a neighbor. I see a ghost and I say, I have this terrific fear. And when I come close, I say, oh, it's just a lamppost. All my states of fear and not fear and relief and anger and compassion are changing. Moment to moment. I am changing moment to moment. But there has to be one change less on which the changing is playing. It's not possible for the waves to rise when there is no ocean. There has to be a changeless substratum. And that is our true self. That is our only true self. So he goes on to say, Tvam avyaya shashvata dharma gopta. Tvam avyaya. Yes, I know that now you are all pervading. Avyaya. He's making great progress, Arjun, as we move on. Shashvata dharma gopta. So you are also the protector of eternal dharma. This is a beautiful word. Shashvat dharma gopta. Dharma gopta, you are the protector of dharma. Means what? So the word dharma has also been used in Vedanta in the sense of your true self. And the true self we have just described as that one single ocean of consciousness, which is the substratum of all the experiences. If we know our true nature, that is, if we know our true dharma, that dharma then protects us and is protected. Dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. How? How are we protected? Because once we know our true self, how can then we be tossed about by the vagaries and vicissitudes of this mortal and material world? Naturally, we'll rise above it and we'll say, oh, now I understand. Okay, everything is just happening the way it is because this world is made up of matter and 5 elements. So am I. So am I meaning the body and the mind part of me. And therefore, it's just all passing. And all these things which are happening to me in my relationships and profit and loss and victory and success and failure are all just passing. I will understand that the moment I know all this is not me. So therefore Bhagavan says the moment you know your own dharma, which is dharma used here in that sense, in the sense of your true self, your true nature. It is my swadharma, my swarupa. The moment we realize it, no more grief, no more sorrow. This is the only secret. So it is a shashvat dharma gopta. Beautiful word. It is shashvat, it's eternal, and it is the only dharma worth knowing. And it will protect you. And it will also be protected. Why? Because then only people will talk about it once they realize it. And then it will be passed on through generations once we realize it. So truth doesn't need protection, by the way. But it's just that it will be passed on through generations. Somebody can, like Arjun is being informed by his compassionate friend and charioteer Krishna. So somebody is there to inform. So that dharma, that truth also remains protected and we also remain protected. Dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. You will be protected by that truth and no more tossing about. That's what is meant by Shashvat Dharma Gopta. Shashvata Dharma Gopta. Sanatana stavam purusho mato me. And therefore, in my opinion, he says, mato me, he's giving his opinion. In my opinion, you are the ancient, Sanatan, timeless. I like the word timeless better than ancient because ancient implies time. Timeless Purusha. Here Purusha again means the ultimate reality, the Sat, the Tattva, and not the male form of human existence. Purusha, the ultimate Param Purusha. So he says, yes, I think you are that timeless Purusha. He is describing Krishna to Krishna himself. See his naivety and his simplicity of Arjun. So this also means that if truth is one, then how is it that we all ask each other, who is your prophet? Oh, is your prophet Muhammad? Is your prophet Jesus? Is your prophet Zarathustra or Lao Tzu? That is an ancient Chinese religion. No. So you ask someone in Sanatan Dharma, who is your prophet? And the answer is, prophet. We don't have a single prophet. We have only truth. We talk only of that Satya, that eternal truth that stands alone. Truth stands alone. So what prophet are you talking about? Name one prophet. Okay, we can talk of rishis. They are like lots of scientists in a laboratory and they're all doing their research and telling us about the truth and writing it. And Ved Vyasji comes and compiles it and gives us a beautiful library. So in the same way, one youngster very insolently once had asked Swami Chinmayaji, one teenager. He said, Swamiji, which is your... we have the Bible, we have this Quran. Which is your text? That one text that. So Chinmayaji said, okay, welcome to my library. Which means I have a library of knowledge which talks about the one Satya which stands alone. It stands alone. It doesn't need a prophet. And so therefore there is no talk of Paigambar and stuff like that. Let's talk of only truth. Just like science. It's like saying that Newton is my God because he is the greatest physicist. Suppose I say that. And suppose I worship Einstein or I worship Newton. And then I say, oh, who's your God? And the fellow will say, I am a scientist, for God's sake. I want to get to the bottom of the truth about any element, about any thing in this existence. I want to get. So I am a truth hunter, the scientist will tell you. So why are you worshipping Einstein and Newton? It is as ridiculous as that. So in short, what we have seen so far is that Bhagwan wants Arjun to see a universal view, not a small view. And we all have a small view and we can see only a limited, within a limited range, let's say. That range is only what me, my family, my sukha, dukkha, my prosperity, my security, my ambitions, my future, my pleasures up ahead, and what pleasures I experienced in the past or what calamities I experienced. It's either in the past or the future. My past and future being limited by all these short experiences is the only reality and a limited vision that I have. Krishna says, Arjun, I want to give you a universal vision where you will just see your little past, present, future and your little existence and ambitions and sukha, dukkha as just passing little moths to, like moths around a light. They are there now, gone the next second. You will see in perspective. So we are trying to, when we say Virat Roop or Vishwaroop, we are trying to look at existence in the perspective of God's time. Okay, so God here, again, we have to be careful, is not a figure in the temple, is that ultimate, the principle of reality, that Sat principle. Now in God's perspective, we are trying to see the universe, the universal view. Okay, very, very ambitious. And it takes courage to do that, to have such a large view. But what is the fallout from it? Naturally, the fallout from it is that I will stop having these small little aham battles, ahankar battles. This is me. How come this happened to me? And this is what should happen to me in the future, so that I have collected a few more pleasures with my family, friends, my community, my social work or my profession. My mind is wandering only within the parameters of which have been drawn by my ahankar. And the ahankar is not even a sat, which means a non-sat. And asat has drawn my parameters, my periphery, and within that I'm trapped and I consider it my life. So what a beautiful life this is. Yes, it's beautiful. But in God's perspective of time, it is as useless as a moth near fire, which is here one moment, gone the next, no significance. So that is the larger perspective we want to see. That's why it's called Virat Roop. Okay, let's see how in verse number 19, Arjun, some more descriptions of this particular roop that he has seen, this vastness, this vision which is actually beyond space, beyond time. Number 19. Anadimadhyantam anantaviryam anantabahum shashi surya netram. Number 19. Anantaviryam. It is endless, first of all, Ananta. It has no beginning, no middle, and it is infinite in its, not only in its existence, it's infinite in its power. So, Anantaviryam. How can we draw a picture of a word picture or an actual paint picture of something that is abstract? So it's like saying, okay, so I am telling you what happiness is. Now can you please draw a picture of happiness or joy or anand? So it's as tough as that. An abstract tattva being put in finite terms. So Anantaviryam, we don't know. Once again, it's a repetition. There's no end, there's no middle, and there's no beginning. Just like space. But yet it holds the entire endless arms. And Anantabahum, Shashi Surya Netram, and the eyes are like the sun and the moon. And it holds endless arms. How? Because you can see that in this entire universe, there are galaxies, there are solar systems where around one sun, our sun is not the only sun in the whole universe and whole Brahmand. I'm sure we all know that, right? So around any of the suns in any galaxy, there will be some planets rotating. In the same way, they have a kind of axis on which they rotate, and then they revolve around the sun. So it may be elliptical. It's usually elliptical, not circular. And if we look at the smallest particle on this planet, the smallest atom, it has exactly the same structure as the sun with planets around it, except that we call it atom plus having the rotation of or the neutrons, protons, and protons and photons, which are rotating, revolving around it. How come the structure is the same of the atom and of the cosmos? Because they are the same. And we also said, because everything is a reflection of the same reality. Just as I am one, but I can reflect myself in a hall of mirrors and see million faces and million arms. I say Anantabahum, I can see so many. That means there are so many creatures on this earth, but there's a reflection of the same. Shashi Surya Netram. The sun and the moon are your eyes. Now, the sun is actually the source of light. But what about moon? The moon is reflected light. And therefore we say that the sun is the original light. Moon doesn't have a light of its own. In the same way, we, the jivas, we have a kind of existence as a reflection of that Paramatma. So we are a reflected entity called Jiva or Atma. It's reflected. That means it's the same. So does it have the same properties? Yes. So if my hair is curly and I look in the mirror, it will have the same properties of curly black hair. How can the properties change? And so if I am 5 feet 3 inches, it will be the same in the reflection. It has the same properties. So if I am a reflected consciousness, then do I have the same properties as that Paramatma consciousness? And what is that property? First of all, am I the same? Yes. That intuition, that Shraddha, that belief has to go. Because there are n number of examples given. And yes, we are the same. And what are those properties which are the same? Same. Existence, I am existence. I exist now, past, present, future. I have existed in different states of my being, and also before my birth and after death. My existence is irrefutable. Okay, so I am existence, Sat. I am consciousness. Of course I am Chetan. Otherwise, how can, if consciousness is not powering me, I cannot speak or read or understand or comprehend or try to figure out. No Sukshma Buddhi possible. I am consciousness, yes. And I am destructible or not. You are Anantam. So you are Jnanam. The property of Paramatma is Satyam Jnanam Anantam, which is the same as Sat Chit Anand. We are a reflected part, let's say, part of the same. Just like the big magnet, and you chip off a small magnet, it will have the same exact properties and capacity. Capacity is the same. Can you believe it? I have the same capacity as Paramatma. Yes, if you can rise up to that and understand yourself as that. But we function as petty little animalistic creatures, so our properties are also limited to that. The magnet, the small piece of magnet has the same capacity to attract. It's less in power. Naturally, we are less in power because we are made of these 5 elements. So we can't have the power of Paramatma, but we have the shade, the shadow of the same qualities of Sat Chit Anand. Just like the magnet, the small tiny magnet may not be able to lift a ship or a truck. That power is missing. But the quality is, yes, I can attract. I have a north pole and a south pole, and I can attract a small little pin. Yes, same. So Shashi Surya Netram means Shashi is the reflected light, that is the moon, and Surya is the source of light. I am a reflection of the main source of light. So the original source of light is complete and whole. That means I also must be whole and complete. Yes, we are. Where is the confusion about this? We are whole, we are complete. But we live in a state where we feel that a sense of unfulfillment and incompleteness and loneliness and deprivation, ki mere paas ye nahi hai, abhava. All these are bhavanas in which we live, but it is not our real nature. Therefore, Bhagavan said that if you know your real nature, which is Sat Chit Anand, that you are that universal entity, a reflection of it, then you are beyond not only sukha dukha, not only beyond sorrow, you are beyond death. This is the promise of Krishna. But इतना बड़ा vision तो होना चाहिए ना, इतना बड़ा view. तो एक बड़ी दूरबीन चाहिए होती है. We need Krishna to give us that बड़ी दूरबीन, that big दूरबीन to see the entire, to see ourselves as if looking at ourselves from a huge spaceship out there. And then you say, oh, I am that tiny creature over there. Where is my God? My God is on that earth. You see, can you see that green and blue planet? Yes. Where on that planet? Oh, it is, can you see that subcontinent, triangular shaped, India? Yes, I am there in that southern part. Can you see Andhra? Yes, I am there. Can you see some mountains? And I am in one temple over there called Tirupati Nath. Yes, I am there. How can God be in a tiny space? When you look at it from space, it looks almost comical to describe God's position like that. But it's not comical, because I don't want to belittle the importance of temples, of prayer, of Tirtha Sthana. You know why? Because the moment we take refuge in Tirtha Sthana and in temples and on pilgrimages, do you know what's one thing that happens to us? We take, for that small period of time, we take our minds off from this sansari preoccupations, and for that brief moment there is manashuddhi from the kama, krodha, mad, lobha, moha. At least that purpose is fulfilled. So we may, in that sense, we may say, yes, my God is there, and I seek refuge in my temple in order to get away from my own limited self and to find my higher self. Okay. Pashyami tvam deepta hutasha shavatram vaktram. So you need a Deepta Hutasha Vaktram. It means that there is a burning fire in my mouth. Even your speech needs the power of consciousness, otherwise we can't speak. So this is just a poetic way of saying, yes, it is your Pran Shakti in everything, even in your Vaktram is speech. Svatejasa Vishwamidam Tapantam. Yes, the whole universe is lit up. Lit up again gives us the feeling of physical light, is powered by that one consciousness. But who powers that consciousness? Unka plug kahan hai? So that question again is misleading, because consciousness just is. It exists in its own light. That's why the last word in the last line is Svatejasa. It is its own light. It is its own power. Beyond that, there is no seer. There is no observer. It is the ultimate. Svatejasa. It is its own light. So, how is it? So, one example that I just noted in one annotation here, it's like saying this whole universe, when you look at this whole universe that Bhagwan is talking about with multiple arms, Ananta Bahum, and millions of mouths and heads. So, if you had a machine which could look like a microscope but much bigger, and that microscope could put your whole body under the microscope and then could view what's inside, and you know what it would see? Exactly this kind of a sight. Millions and millions of atoms and molecules rushing about busily, and being born and devoured, rising and dissolving, because every moment there are cells which are coming alive and other cells which are dying in your body, isn't it? So there is life and death happening every moment. We would see that actually in our own bodies through a microscope, through all the cells of life and death and destruction and creation and sustenance. So it means that Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So there is sustenance and there is creation and there is destruction. Yes, every cell, every moment. And there's a lot of activity, and it's a madhouse of millions of cells. And if you could stretch them from end to end, it would take. Somewhere I saw the description of your DNA. DNA, if you could stretch it from end to end and join them, you could come. You could take a journey from here to the sun 158 times. That means how vast is the capacity of our one single body to hold so much of information and so much of data. DNA cells, yes, I was reading about that. Now, if the whole universe, if you look at it, it's exactly that. It's only creation of new things and sustenance and dissolution. So then everything is dissolving and rising, and at the same time my body is one. My body is one, and I see so much happening under that magical microscope. You say, oh yes, so consciousness is one, and this whole Brahmand is not diverse, or so many things happening, so everything must be distinct and diverse, fragmented. Ye wo hai, wo hamara planet hai, ye hamara planet hai, ye unka desh hai. There is no fragmentation in my own body. Everything is working together as one cosmos, let's call it our own ecosystem inside. And yet, I am one. My body is one in that same way. So it's just one vision, one visual that came to my mind. I thought I'll share it. And otherwise, it's difficult to describe that ultimate reality in such vast terms. But how can we look at reality from which point of view? Because for me, Krishna is my Ishta Devata sitting in my altar. For Arjun, he is his charioteer. For the gopis, he is the flute player. And he is their companion and a dancer. So which is he? So it is simple. If we look with our physical eyes, then he is a murti. Of course, that God is a murti in the temple. If we look with our Gyan Chakshu meaning trying to use Vivek and our Buddhi. Vivek meaning distinguishing Sat and Asat. Then we see, that is Sat and Chit, existence and consciousness. Depends on which eyes we are using. So we can use our physical eyes, or we can use our Gyan Chakshu, or we can, if we have God's grace, use Divya Chakshu, and only in Divya Chakshu can we have a vision as vast as this Virat Roop or Vishwa Roop, which is actually an expanse without a beginning and a middle and an end. It's just one homogeneous, complete expanse. That's all. दिव्य चक्षु. तो फिर रामायण में लिखा है, जिनकी रही भावना जैसी, जिनकी रही भावना जैसी, प्रभु मूरत तिन देखी तैसी. That means you have the capacity and your bhavana to see the vast expanse. Okay. You have the capacity only to have a vivek, discernment between Sat Asat. Okay, you can understand that tattva as existence and consciousness, Sat Chit. Or if you want to keep your mind only on the Murat, that's also fine. Bhakti. Jinki rahi bhavana jaisi, Prabhu Murat tin dekhi taisi. Therefore, our vision directs us to how we can comprehend this reality. Arjun has much more to say about this, by the way, because now his life is completely changed, because his world view has changed, his vision has changed, because of this magnificent, awe-inspiring, spectacular display of Virat Roop. And therefore, we'll read on next time as to how he is awestruck and how he now begins to make sense of life. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Shri Krishna Arpanam.